A couple of months ago, I came on here and I gave you guys my NFC South predictions before the season. And embarrassing enough, I had the Carolina Panthers winning this damn division, man. I thought these boys were going to go 9-8. I thought that Bryce Young was getting drafted into a perfect situation. Frank Wright finally got a good young quarterback instead of going with the old veteran QBs that costed him his job in Indianapolis. I thought the offensive line was going to continue to play the way that they did near the end of last season under Steve Wilkes. The Carolina Panthers, I completely whiffed on. This is the worst prediction that I've ever made out of all my years doing this podcast, and I'm really embarrassed. Okay, I really hate looking at this graphic and seeing that I had the Carolina Panthers going 9-8. These boys will be lucky enough to win even a game or two. They're just a complete disaster. They're awful. They can't block nobody. The receivers can barely get open. Their best receiver is Adam Thielen, dog. He's 33 years old. He's a grandpa. He's an old man, and yet this is the only wide receiver who continues to get open for Bryce Young. And it's Carolina Panthers fans expect Bryce Young to cook with no ingredients, man. Frank Wright, I think he's still equivalent to Urban Meyer 2.0. I don't care what anybody tells me about Bryce Young. I know what Bryce Young I saw at Alabama. And the Bryce Young that I'm seeing right now with the Carolina Panthers is not the same quarterback that I saw carry Alabama on his back during his final season. So I was wrong about the Carolina Panthers, which is why I got to give you guys my updated NFC South predictions currently right now. So I had the Carolina Panthers going 9-8, had the Falcons going 7-10, the Saints going 6-11, and the Buccaneers finishing in last place at 5-12. Now, currently, right, I got the Buccaneers winning this division at 10-7. I think that the Buccaneers have clearly showed that they're the best team in this division, and it's not really close. Todd Bowles, I know that I've had my criticisms about him. He hasn't really proven to be a winning caliber coach ever since his first couple of years with the New York Jets when he had Brandon Marshall and Ryan Fitzpatrick, and they nearly made it to the playoffs. And ever since then, he hasn't really had a winning record, and he hasn't really proven to be a good head coach. But this season, though, the Buccaneers, surprisingly, have turned the corner. Right now, they are in first place in this division at 3-2. Baker Mayfield is having a career resurgence under offensive coordinator Dave Canales, who Todd Bowles hired, who previously was the quarterback's coach for the Seattle Seahawks for a couple of years. And he's doing wonders with Baker Mayfield in this offense. And this offensive line has played pretty good. And when you look at the Buccaneers' losses, they've lost to good teams. They haven't lost to any bad teams. They lost to the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday night, and last week they lost to the Detroit Lions. Those aren't bad losses. They lost to good teams. Their 3 wins, you like the fact that they're coming against teams that you expect them to beat. And they got a very good defense, and I can't wait for J. Cansey to get fully healthy, because I was really high on him when he was coming out of Pitt. This defense has played at a really high level, and this offense has proven to be functional at times, even though they struggle to run the football effectively. You got to like what you've seen out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So they're in first place in the NFC South right now, and I'm picking them to win this division right now as far as them going into week 7. Now, the Atlanta Falcons, I think they're going to be 7-10, all right? My stance on Atlanta still hasn't changed. This defense definitely has overexceeded my expectations. This defense looks really good. As a matter of fact, the Falcons probably have one of the most underrated defenses in the NFL. I've yet to see a team just go up and down the field on Atlanta's defense. Their pass rush has improved tremendously. Their secondary still gives up a couple of big plays here or there, but for the most part, this defense has held up their end of the bargain. The offense, on the other hand, is a completely different story. And the reason for their offense being heavily inconsistent is because they got a heavily inconsistent quarterback in Desmond Ridder. And Falcons fans last week, they were quick to come at me and say, "Oh, JT, you were wrong about Desmond Ridder. You saw Desmond Ridder balling out." The fool had one good game, and then he reverts back to the same quarterback that he was before. He threw 3 interceptions. You cannot make any excuses for that if you're a Falcons fan. Like, look at Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith has some of the funniest facial expressions that I've ever seen, man. And when Desmond Ridder threw that interception in the red zone, that boy said he couldn't believe that shit. And at this point, you're looking at Arthur Smith, and you got to ask him, Arthur Smith, you do know that this kind of is a make-or-break year for you. If the Falcons don't at least have a winning record, you might not be around in 2024. So are you really going to put your job on the line with Desmond Ridder? Is Desmond Ridder really the kind of quarterback that you want to live and die with? If I was Arthur Smith at this point, I'm putting in Taylor Heinicke, okay? And I think eventually we will see Taylor Heinicke, which is why I think they're going to go 7-10. Taylor Heinicke isn't the greatest quarterback in the world, but he can come in and win you some games. Desmond Ridder, he has some moments when he can be a solid, serviceable quarterback, but more times than not, he just isn't all that. He makes bad decisions with the football. He constantly throws the ball into double coverage. He is a really good athlete, but I don't think Desmond Ridder is really starting caliber material right now. And if he does eventually turn into a starting quarterback, I think it's going to be a couple of years down the road. He still looks like a rookie to me. He still looks like a deer in headlights. And when you are a team like Atlanta, and the identity of your offense is based on running the football, ball control, you need a quarterback who can take care of the football. And I keep hearing these Alex Smith comparisons to Desmond Ridder, and I keep telling people that being compared to Alex Smith in the year 2023 is not a compliment. If anything, it's kind of an insult. That means that you're not good enough to win a game, but you're never going to play bad enough to lose a game. That means you're a mid quarterback. Who wants to be labeled a mid quarterback? That's pretty much what Alex Smith was. At his peak, he was a really good game manager, but there's a reason why the Chiefs moved on from him. So I got the Falcons going 7-10. Their quarterback situation isn't good. Desmond Ridder is holding back the young playmakers that they have in that offense. Drake London, Kyle Pitts. Like, you got people calling Kyle Pitts a bust, and it's not anything to do with Kyle Pitts being a bust. Kyle Pitts just doesn't have a quarterback who can throw him the damn football. So I got the Falcons going 7-10. I think the Saints are going to finish 7-10 too. Like, they may win one more game than what I expected them to before the season started, but the Saints are the team that I thought that they would be. Saints fans thought that Derek Carr was all of a sudden going to be the missing piece to get that offense humming. They thought that Andy Dalton and Jameis Winston were holding the offense back. So they get Derek Carr. Everybody was happy about it. And everybody was saying, oh, Derek Carr never had a great defense with the Raiders, Well, he gets a great defense with the New Orleans Saints. And all that really does is, kind of make Derek Carr look just slightly better than what he was, because he has a defense that can bail him out from his mid play. That's what Derek Carr has been. He's been mid this season. Like, did you not see the Texans game? Game on the line, Derek Carr is throwing the fucking check down to Alvin Kamara. Are you freaking kidding me? You're throwing the check down pass to Alvin Kamara when you need the first down to keep the drive alive? You got Saints fans still calling out Pete Carmichael for the abysmal play calling, the conservative play calling. You got Saints fans who still want Dennis Allen fired. This is a mid-football team, people. And you can't really be surprised because you got a mid-quarterback and a below-average head coach. And although Derek Carr isn't a bad quarterback, he's not a quarterback that can elevate a team with subpar coaching. If he had Sean Payton calling the plays for him in New Orleans right now, the Saints probably would be winning this division at this moment. But I got them going 7-10. And the Carolina Panthers, I think eventually they'll be able to win 3 games. I don't know where those 3 losses are going to happen. Maybe they can steal a game against the Falcons or the Saints. I don't know, but this team is a complete clown show. Frank Wright, a couple of hours ago, it came out and announced that he is giving up play calling duties to his offensive coordinator, but I don't really know if it's going to make that big of a difference. You can't protect Bryce Young. You don't have any receivers outside of old man, 33-year-old Adam Thielen, who can consistently get open. The Panthers suck, dog. And their defense has played really well up to this point. But offense just can't get anything going. Again, I'm not about to say it's because of Bryce Young. Bryce Young, to me, was one of the greatest quarterback prospects that I've ever evaluated in recent memory. And the only way that you can mess up a great quarterback prospect like Bryce Young is due to poor coaching. You remember what happened to Trevor Lawrence's final season? Well, his first season with the Jaguars when he had Urban Meyer calling the plays and running the offense and running the team? Yeah, it was a disaster. If the Carolina Panthers fire Frank Wright at the end of this season and they bring in a better head coach like Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, I definitely think that we will see the Bryce Young that Panthers fans were hoping for when they took him #1 overall. But this team is terrible. And it doesn't matter, even if you did draft CJ Stroud #1 overall, he still would struggle too because the team is just shit. CJ Stroud has a way better situation with the Houston Texans than what Bryce Young has with the Panthers. You got receivers that can separate. You got a good coaching staff. And even though you got a bad offensive line, CJ Stroud is still being able to make the most of it. Bryce Young, he's not CJ Stroud. And even though I kind of had them as 1A, 1B, CJ Stroud has definitely looked like the better quarterback up to this point. But Bryce Young is just in a terrible situation. So these are my updated NFC South record predictions. I got the Buccaneers winning the division now at 10-7. I got the Falcons and the Saints tied for second place, and I got the Panthers going 3-14. And when you look at the current standings right now, going into week 7, the Buccaneers are 3-2. I think that they probably should start to separate themselves from the rest of this division within the next couple of weeks. And when they play against the other teams in this division, I think they're pretty much going to have their way against everybody else because this is not a good division. This division is full of mid teams. The Panthers suck, the Falcons are mid, and the Saints are mid. The Buccaneers, to me, look like the best team in this division, and that's why I'm picking them to win this division at the moment. So before I move on to my next couple of segments, I got to get a drink of water real quick. For those of y'all wondering why my voice sounds a little bit raspy, is because I was yelling at the damn TV all this weekend. I was yelling at Colorado for giving up a 29-0 lead after halftime. I was yelling at Kansas for calling some stupid plays, like, not related, but I was watching Kansas play against Oklahoma State, right? Because I had them on my parlay. All I needed was for Kansas to cover the -3. And it's a 4th-and-1 situation. Jason Bean has the ball in his hands. All they need to do is get 1 yard to keep the drive alive, right? So on 4th-and-1, the rest of college football and the NFL, you know what they're doing on 4th-and-1? They're doing the quarterback tush push. Kansas decides to get cute and run a bubble screen on 4th-and-1 in the course, and then it worked because who didn't see that coming? Everybody knows that if you're not going to do the tush push, you're either going to try to run the ball up the middle or you're going to try to get something out fast on the edge. Like, that just blew me, man. So I was screaming at Kansas. Like, I was livid, man. I was livid. Now, you know who else I'm livid with? I'm livid with Bill Belichick, man.